How you doing? I'm Brendan. This video series is on new features in PHP 7+. If you like this video and want more, click subscribe down below. Today we're going to talk about scalar type declarations in PHP 7. So in PHP 5.6, this was introduced as type hints, and it's undergone some changes for PHP 7, and they're now called type declarations. Type declarations allow functions to require that parameters are of a certain type at call time. If the given value is of the incorrect type, then an error is generated. In PHP 5, this was a recoverable fatal error, while PHP 7 will throw a type error exception. There are 4 types of scalar variables in PHP. There is an int, a float, a string, and a bool. If you want more information on scalar variables and what they are and why they're called that, check out my video, What are Scalar Variables? Aliases, important to note, aliases of scalar variable types when you're doing a type declaration will not be supported. So it's important to use bool and not Boolean, or you'll have an error, or it'll treat it as, say, an instance of the Boolean class. So if you want to avoid crazy, hard to debug errors, use the very specific names for scalar variable types. PHP has weak typing. By default, PHP will coerce scalar values from one type to another. So for instance, an integer of 1 will become the string with the character 1. So it's important to note that, because even if you turn on strict typing, which is so by default you're going to be in weak typing mode. So if you have a function that requires an integer, but you pass in a Boolean, it may coerce that Boolean value into the correct value for you automatically, if it feels it can. This is the same way that some built-in functions work in PHP. But you can turn on strict typing mode on a file-by-file basis. The exception to this is that an integer can be passed always into a function that declares it needs a float. Not the other way around, though. To enable strict mode, you use a declare statement with the strict _types declaration. Turning on strict types mode enables it for return type declarations as well, so just be aware of that if you are using return type declarations. And strict typing, this is a little confusing. Strict typing applies to the function calls made from within the file with strict typing enabled. So that's what it applies to. If you have strict typing enabled in a file, and you make function calls to another file, it will use strict typing, right? It's not the functions declared within that file. If a file with weak strict typing enabled makes a call to a function that was defined in a file with strict typing enabled, the caller's preference, weak typing, will be respected, and the value will be coerced. So that's about it for this feature. It's a cool feature. It's not something that, so it's great for like type hinting, obviously, and being verbose in your code. But this isn't one of those features where if you're not using it, you really notice. The language didn't have this for a long time, and you by no means need to start declaring Java-esque functions which have a return type, and each variable in your method call has a type before it. You can do that, certainly, but you don't need to if you don't want to. No one's going to look at your code and say, why the hell aren't you declaring your variable types? At least not at this stage. Maybe in the future they will. So that's it. Again, I'm Brendan. This video series is on new features in PHP 7+. If you like this video and you want more, click subscribe down below. If you want to hear me talk about other PHP features or what PHP features I want, leave a comment. Love to hear from you. See ya.